All right, so today's review is about the three branches of government. It is the executive, legislative, and judicial, and those three branches are our federal government. Do not get it confused with the state government or local government. Remember, the state and the federal government work together, and they share powers, and that's protected under what amendment? The 10th Amendment. And what is the principle that gave us that amendment? Say it. That's right. Federalism. Now, what you need to know about the three branches is that the three branches were created by the founding fathers during the writing of the Constitution, which happened in 1787. And remember, the executive branch is going to be where the president's going to be. The judicial branch is going to be where the Supreme Court's going to be. And more importantly, we do have the legislative branch. Now, when we were talking about the Great Compromise, this is what the Great Compromise created, which is going to be Congress. It's going to be a bicameral, meaning two. On one side, we have the House of Representatives. On the other side, we have the Senate. So, the legislative branch. Remember, it starts with an L. So, if it starts with an L, what do you think that they do? Come on, you got to get this. Right, they make laws. Right here, guys, we have the legislative branch. The legislative branch is a bicameral Congress. We have two, yes, count them, two different types of groups that make our laws. We have the Senate, which is equal representation. It doesn't matter how big your state is. It doesn't matter how small your state is. Everybody gets 2 votes to make a law. And then we have the House of Representatives. There, it all depends on how many people live in your state. Not so much as how big your state is. It all depends on population. This is a compromise that was brought up during the Constitution to make small states and big states happy, as far as representation goes. Here we have a picture. And here we do have all senators and we have all House of Representatives. There's about 535 of them. We have 100 in the Senate, and then we have 435 in the House of Representatives. But remember, if your state gets more populated, well, you get more votes. So it all depends on population in the House of Representatives. Remember that. And then in the Senate, what is it? Everybody gets the equal vote. Now we're talking about the executive branch, and a lot of you guys know exactly what this is, or this building. It is located in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C. And who lives there right now? Obama. Because it is the 30th of December. But starting in January, who's going to live there? That's right, President Trump. And he's the one that's going to be enforcing the laws. But remember, guys, he doesn't make the laws. We just spoke about the individuals that make the laws, okay? So remember, executive branch starts with an E. They enforce law. Here we have the judicial branch. And the judicial branch starts with a J. So they're going to judge laws, guys. They're going to interpret the laws. Right now, currently, is 2016. It is December 30th, 2016. And right now at this time, there are only 8 judges because 1 judge passed away. And Obama has been trying to nominate a judge, but the legislative branch keeps on denying his nomination. So now what's going to happen is this. When Donald Trump becomes president, he's going to nominate someone. And it's going to need to go through the legislative branch in order for them to approve the next Supreme Court judge. Now, this is the second time that President Obama tries to nominate someone. The first time, it's going to be a very, very important one because the first time was a Latina. A Latino is right now part of the Supreme Court judge. Alright guys, in the judicial branch, we have 9 people that work together to find out if a law is constitutional or not. These judges are chosen by the president if one passes away. There's always going to be a total of 9. Unless one passes away and The president is in charge of nominating or giving the job to someone. But the thing is, guys, what you need to understand is not as easy as it sounds. The president has to get approval from the legislative branch. And that's another principle of the Constitution, to make sure that the president is not just choosing whoever or one of his friends. That is part of checks and balances, guys. That's right. Checks and balances make sure that the president doesn't choose just whoever. It has to be approved by the legislative branch. Back in 2009, guys, President Obama, he nominated the first Hispanic to be on the Supreme Court. And what's really cool is that it was a woman, and her name is Sonia de Sotomayor. What you need to understand is that Miss Sotomayor, she will be there in the Supreme Court until she passes away or she decides to retire. And that's very, very rare, guys. This is a job that you get and you're set for life. You stay there. Nothing or no one can fire you. Now, why did Madison separate the powers? Come on. Why do you think he separated them? And when we're talking about Madison, we're talking about James Madison, because he's a primary writer of what document? The Constitution. So why do you think he wanted to separate the powers? Well, so no one person or group cannot have total control of the government. It's to protect us, guys. And this is a principle called separation of powers. We talked about the 7 principles of the U.S. Constitution. Okay? So this is just a little review for you. Now, how did the framers make sure that no one branch government became too strong? The framers had to balance the power among the 3 branches. Now, say the 3 branches with me. Number 1, or there's no order for this, but let's say legislative branch. Everybody say legislative branch. Good. Those are the guys that make laws. That's a bicameral. The next one's going to be the executive branch. Those are the ones that enforce the laws. That's where President Trump, your president, my president, is going to be there for the next 4 years. And hopefully by then you guys are allowed to vote. And then the next one's going to be the judicial branch. Those are 3. Yes, count them. 3. Legislative, executive, and judicial. Make laws, enforces laws, and judges laws. Here we have the legislative branch, guys. They make new laws, they regulate trade, they declare war, they can cancel the president's veto by 2/3 of the vote. And now, what is a veto? What happens is this: let's say somebody wants to make the law, they present it in either the House of Representatives or in the Senate. From there, that bill, which is not a law, guys, it's called a bill, that bill is going to be moved to the, let's pretend that it's presented in the House of Representatives. So they present it. Their majority of them say yes. Out of the 100 people, let's say 98 say yes. From there, it goes to the House of Representatives. In the House of Representatives, let's say 432 say yes. That's the majority. Then it moves to the president. The president can either approve it, he signs it, or he can veto it. That means cancel. If that happens, if the bill gets vetoed, it goes back to the House of Representatives or the Senate, depending where it started. And as long as 2/3 of them say okay, they can overwrite. That means that they can do what they wish without the president's approval. Now here, guys, we have the executive branch. That's where the president is. That's the commander-in-chief of the army. He also makes treaty with other nations. He's basically the face of America. He also approves or vetoes new laws. And he appoints judges to the Supreme Court. Right now at this time, guys, we have 8 judges. So as soon as Donald Trump is placed in office, he will nominate someone. And then from there, it has to go to the legislative branch and they have to approve it. The third one that we have is the judicial branch, guys. That's the Supreme Court. Judges make decisions of the lower courts. They interpret and explain laws. They also declare laws or president's actions to be unconstitutional. Later on, we will be talking about judicial review, guys, and that is going to happen during Marbury versus Madison. We'll talk about that separately because that's a totally different story. But that court case is going to allow the judicial branch to say if a law is constitutional or unconstitutional. And here, guys, we have a drawing. And right now, a little bit, I'm going to ask you to basically kind of answer some questions for me. But let's analyze this. At the very bottom of this tree, we have the roots, and that's Magna Carta. We have the Roman Empire, or the Republic. We have the Virginia House of Burgesses. We have the 1620 Mayflower Compact. We have the English Bill of Rights of 1689. We have Montesquieu's separation of powers, John Locke's social contract of 1690. All those is what created this, which is the U.S. Constitution. And with the U.S. Constitution, we have the judicial branch, we have the executive branch, and the legislative branch. All of these make our trees, and underneath these, we have the 7 principles. We have popular sovereignty. That means that we, the people, have the right. We have limited government. That means that the government has to abide by rules, and the rules that are set in the U.S. Constitution. We have separation of powers, what we just talked about. We have checks and balances. I just gave you an example about that. We have federalism, which is the 10th Amendment, guys. Remember that. Republicanism, what does that mean? That means that we're allowed to vote in whoever we want as president, as mayor, as a senator, as a person, representative in the House of Representatives. And then at the very last thing that I put here is individual rights. That is the Bill of Rights. That is to ensure that the U.S. government doesn't get out of control, and that we as individuals have certain rights that cannot be denied. Okay? Alright, guys, we've come to the final 4 questions that we have here, and I want you to kind of press pause here and just answer these questions for me. Please comment below the YouTube. Alright? I hope you got something out of this. See you in class.